patching up sand and cement render, and this one was a doorway then turned into a window, and this is it actually finished. I'm going to show you all how I got this finished so well.
Let's describe Daddy's videos.
So first things first, scratch coat, and obviously mixing and preparation. Wet the wall down here. It's quite a warm day and don't want it to dry. It is fresh block, so had it been a colder day I might not have needed to wet down them block whatsoever. Could have just scratched straight onto them, but because it's warm, they've been built maybe a week now, and just a wee flick of water do no harm, especially for the scratch coat. I'm not going to double coat this same day or anything. I feel you get better strength when you scratch it and you call back and you finish it a following day. So just mix it up with the drill, 3-to-1. It's the ratio I most times go for. And then a top 4-to-1 coat. So really, when you're scratching these guys, you gotta pay attention to them joints left and right. You don't want to first coat this too heavy, otherwise your next coat of satin cement will be too thin and you'll have places that will dry very quickly, that can also shine through and won't look very tidy when it's actually rubbed up and sponge finished. It can look a bit patchy looking. So a nice even scratch coat will actually help your finished coat, and the overall appearance of the finished job, it will look much better if you do a nice even scratch coat. So quite warm, and a couple of reveals to do after this as well, and obviously we bit of inside work there, but may as well get it on when we've got good weather. And as you can see guys, just coating it all, straightening it up, and again making sure you get underneath that windowsill, as you don't want to be having a big heavy bit missed, and then when you come to top coat and straighten, it won't be very good for you, because when you pull up your straight edge, that area could slump down on you and it'll be harder to finish. So can't emphasize enough, just to keep it all nice and neat. Make sure you get all the blocks covered and life will go much smoother, literally. So when you have it all on nice and neat, it's time to run your scratcher through it, and I'm using a finest scratching comb here. Find it scratches it lovely, and the keys aren't too far away from each other and they're also not too close, so a good key will have good grip for your next coat. So it's been a day here, I've given it all a wee splash down, and it's going to be quite warm again on this day, so it's going to set pretty well for me. Again, now patching to me is all about the joints, getting them joints invisible, and what you want to do is make sure you're well pushed in to all them joints. Use the original render as your reference. This is obviously, that's the depth you need to go. You can check that with a straight edge from side to side, or a spatula. If you have a spatula that's big enough and rigid enough. And again, the way I like to straighten things is, I don't like to mess about. I like to get it all coated and straighten it straight away when the gear's soft. You can let it pick up a bit and sort of scrape it back, but I like doing it when it's soft and just find it easier. Find it actually on small jobs like this, it actually sets it up quicker. So all in all, just think it's better to straighten up straight away. Again, just mix it up in the bucket, 4-to-1 with the drill, and keep the bucket nice and close and handy to the wall we're rendering here. And again, using them sides as a reference. The other thing I'd like to point out is you will want to mix enough to do, guys, even if you go sort of a quarter of a bucket, a wee bit more, especially for the finishing coat, as to me it's important to use all the same stuff on each patch or each wall you're going to render, and the reason for that is, I know this is going to get painted, but even for the time where it's drying out, it'll look much more uniform, being all the same mix. So it's the exact same ratio, it's the exact same colour. It'll dry out much better looking. It won't look all blotchy or patchy, or there won't be a patch of, oh, that mix maybe had a tiny wee bit more cement in it. So it'll all be the same colour. It'll look much more professional. Even if you're doing it as a DIYer or on your own house, just a bit of DIY work, this will make it look much more professional if you keep the same mix for the same wall, the same patch, whatever it be. And here we are, just straightening it and just using a bit of timber here. I was going to use the straighted edge, but I didn't want to scratch any of the paint either side or anything, so the timber should be a wee bit kinder either side. And if you do use timber, guys, make sure it's straight. Don't be using anything like a banana, otherwise your wall's going to follow that. So once you do straighten it, I have videos on that. Just make sure you fill any hollows out, and make sure when you're straightening it you take any bumps back. And basically once you have it straight, you're going to be ready for the finishing part. And this is probably the most important part of the whole job, is the finishing. And the reason being is that's what it's going to look like. Of course, the mixing, the ratios, the ingredients, waterproofers, everything beforehand has led to this part, and great preparation will leave a great job, of course, a job that will last much longer than somebody's got the wrong mixes in and they maybe just coated it all out in one go. It might not last as long, guys. The wrong sand, there's so many things, but preparation is key. And that's why we have so many videos on preparation, scratch coats, how to straighten. All them steps are on the channel if you want to go into detail on each individual part. But we're here now, rubbing up, I think there's a wasp flying around me, but rubbing up my trusty float here. You can see that float's seen many of walls and many of patching, but again, it's still very nice. If you are a DIYer, it might be a brand new float you're using, which might be a bit more difficult. You might have to take a wee bit more time when you're finishing up. And again, when we say timing is very, very important to all plastering, be it inside, outside, dicing, everything's down to timing, guys, of how you finish things. And for this, like I always say, if it's wet, you're going to have to use a wee bit more of your knowledge and your skill and gently rub it, and know when to actually stop rubbing, leave it, walk away. Where my recommendations for anybody who's pretty new at this is to let it go a wee bit more firm, a bit drier to the surface, and then rub it. Of course it's going to take a bit more muscle, but the more of these patches and DIY jobs you would do, or as an apprentice learning, the more you will learn how to actually finish it when it's softer. But to me, if you let it go that bit more, you really will get it in a much better finish. And again, patching, guys, it's all about them two joints and underneath the sill here. And of course we're working down to the deck here. I think the deck is going to be removed, so we do clean it up pretty well. But again, if something's getting removed, it doesn't need covered up. Usually I would cover up, but decided, sure, if it's getting removed, we can wash it all down, in case they change their mind. That's the other thing you have to think about, guys. People do change their minds, so do make sure you clean up and wash up things all the same. And you can see the amount of time I'm spending on the joints here, making sure that they're rubbed in as flush as possible. Patching sand cement render is difficult. Skim finish inside the finish coats, that's easier in the fact that it's harder to see them when they're patched. Rendering outside sand cement, it can be very hard to feather that in nicely and neat. Did touch base on that on last week's video where I was patching up a plinth, and basically straight lines, so the likes of these straight lines could be more visible to everybody basically. So really I'm taking my time to get these rubbed in nice and neat. Again, we'll have patching pebble dash render. That's even more difficult, guys. Patching slap dash would be just as difficult. I think patching dry dash is probably one of the hardest, and then we'll come into the likes of K-Rend. Patching K-Rend would be very, 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 very difficult, if not near impossible. If I ever get a chance, I'll have that on the channel as well. There's all sorts of things, all sorts of outside finishes, but the main ones are sand cement and likes of pebble dash and dry dash. They are the main finishes. K-Rend's becoming more and more popular, but again, not as popular as the rest just yet. And if I ever get a chance, I'll do some patching videos on that. So when you do get it all rubbed in, taking your time, make sure you fill everything in, and any wee holes you actually feed the stuff. I tend to use the stuff that I drop because it dries up, and you can work that in, you can knead that into the original render and make it all lovely and smooth. So another question that I get asked, is my sponge floats damp? And you can clearly see that this one, it was slightly too damp there. I actually dried it down a bit, but this sponge float is damp. Most times I do use them, but not soaking wet, guys, just slightly damp. If you had a wee squirty bottle, maybe just squirt round your sponge, and that'll help for finishing it where it won't tear. But basically, here we are, the finished job. Let me know what you think in the comments, or if I missed anything.